Welcome to Taking It to the Next Level, a Minnesota Collegiate DECA podcast where we will discuss the world of DECA and talk to professionals about what makes someone successful in today's world. I am the president of Minnesota Collegiate DECA, Zach Spohn. Today I am honored to be joined by my predecessor, Chet Morgan. Chet graduated from St. Cloud State University last spring after completing his term as president of Minnesota Collegiate DECA. After passing the baton to myself, Chet moved on to begin his career in finance as a global tax accountant at U.S. Bank. Chet, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Zach. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me. This is great. We get to talk and kind of see how I'm guessing our terms in office have looked a little different from each other, and it's cool to see what you're out in the world doing now.
Yeah, no doubt. We haven't chatted too much, so this should be interesting.
Yeah, totally, for sure. So let's start at the beginning. When did you first kind of get involved with DECA, and like how did that happen? Why did you do it? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and make a short story long for you. And I was really late in kind of my DECA career when I started. And from high school, I grew up in a really small town, so we had 180 folks in my town. So we didn't have a high school. I went to the neighboring town for that, and there was no DECA whatsoever. Never even heard of it throughout DECA or throughout high school. And just kind of growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do much. I kind of coined myself as probably the most average student, the most average athlete you could ever have, which isn't the best title to have, but that's kind of where I was. But I knew I wanted to be in business. I was kind of, if I was good at anything, it might have been math. You can maybe make an argument for. But I graduated from there. I wanted to go to college and basically get a degree that said finance in my name, and I figured that I could waive it and get a job wherever I wanted. And so that's the kind of the mindset I had coming into college. My freshman year, I didn't really do anything at all. I attended class, I passed. So, and that's kind of where it ended, because throughout my freshman year, I kind of really started to think about, what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be this, average person any longer. So I got into a class that was like called like Career Essentials or something. One of those classes that you do like resumes, you do like mock interviews, and the professor for there preached constantly, you need to be in a student organization to get something on your resume. That's what employees are looking for. So I just kind of blindly took her advice my sophomore year, and I went to our Main Street event where all the student organizations come together and do their pitch.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Didn't really know what I was looking for. I was extremely out of my comfort zone to sign up for anything. But I was going because I needed to get that line on my resume that, I was in a student org. And I was walking, and Taylor Biskey, who was the president of St. Cloud State's DECA chapter. And if anyone's ever met her, she is like very kind of got that charisma, very excited. And she was like, hey, come over here, sign up. Sign your name. And that was the only one I signed my name up for. I was like, I got this done. I'll go to the first meeting. I got that off my chest. And so, yeah, and that was kind of my first ever experience. I don't even think I knew what it was. I knew it was a business organization at that point. Mm-hmm. And then it turned out one of my professors that year for accounting was Craig Wilson, who was the chapter advisor. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my very first initial taste at DECA. I went through that year, and I was way out of my league, and I learned a lot definitely through that.
Yeah. So you said that you were definitely out of your comfort zone in doing that. And I know that's a lot of people when they come to DECA, and DECA tends to bring the best out of people that way.
Oh yeah.
What made you kind of stick with it, I guess? Because like you said, you were out of your comfort zone, and you learned a lot, but it obviously people that haven't done sort of thing that DECA does, and it really puts yourself out there. It's not always the easiest thing in the world. So what made you kind of stick with it and want to continue? And obviously you kind of made your DECA career for yourself. What made you kind of continue on?
Yeah. Kind of what it leads to, especially through that first year, was probably that the advisor was my professor. So I couldn't really, stop coming, else it would just be awkward at that point. But another kind of piece that I started to pick up through the events I was doing with DECA, and then kind of simultaneously I started playing more guitar. You can see it in the back here. Oh, yeah. And what I really started to learn was like there's like a million things that go into it, like a guitar per se, different, notes, songs, pitches, all that. And if you just start doing one little thing and get better at it and just do that perpetually, basically, you're going to get good eventually. And I noticed that things in DECA were, what I wanted to get good at. I wanted to be better at communicating just with people one-on-one. I was really introverted, so being forced to kind of, come out of that comfort zone, which is extremely comfortable, so that was tough. But then it was, my very first event with DECA was just a little mock competition we had at St. Cloud State. And I'll never forget, I got my case study, read it, had absolutely no idea what any of it was, and I knew that in 30 minutes I had to go talk to a professional about it. And when I got through that, I was like, if I could just learn, a little bit as I go, this is definitely what I want to be good at. And I recognized it and stuck with it. And then that following year is kind of where I really started to pick up confidence going into competition and just getting better at communicating all together.
So you talked about how that mock competition kind of got you into the swing of things. Is that at the point where you maybe got involved in your chapter a little bit more, or what sort of roles did you have in your chapter at St. Cloud State throughout your DECA career, I guess?
Yeah, so when I first signed up, it was probably even before that first competition, they had a opening for the treasurer. And I was like the only finance student in DECA at the time. So it was kind of like everyone looked at me and I was like, I'll just, go ahead and do it. I didn't do like a whole lot as far as, responsibility. All I really did was made sure, people got their money in. But it was really cool because I got to hang out with the people that did run it and the advisors a little closer. So that kind of getting behind the scenes, seeing how things were set up is what really made me stick around.
Yeah, I'd say that to other people that consider running for office as well. Like, while it is responsibility in some sense, first of all, that's not a bad thing, because if you want to advance in anything in a career, even, you're gonna have to take on more responsibility. But also, you definitely gain connections with more people that you probably want to have connections with, whether that is the other officers running the show or whether that's advisors, which are faculty. And I mean, I think you make connections with faculty through DECA that you wouldn't otherwise in most cases.
Absolutely. And that goes a long way, specifically in college. If you, sign up for a class that the professor, you're going to probably try a little bit harder just because, you don't want to let them down, or just because you have that or that relationship, you're going to want to put a little bit more into it. So that goes a long way.
Definitely. That's real for sure. So you involved with your chapter and everything like that. You kind of had that introvertness. You kind of learned how to come out of your comfort zone and you gained some confidence. Eventually, obviously, you ran for state office. You were president of Minnesota Collegiate DECA. What was the process like getting there? What made you kind of want to do it? What made you, how did that process work out, I guess? Obviously you won, but how did we get there?
Yeah, no, so kind of after that first year of getting out of my comfort zone, I really planned kind of to just get better at everything that I did, whether that be instruments or DECA or, health, things like that. I was like, I'm going to just be intentional about anything I do. And so I came into that year, my junior year, with just confidence all around. And the first event that I did was the Innovation Summit, which is probably one of my favorite DECA moments, because I came into it like the night before, like I just knew I was going to win the thing and no one had any other say in it. So I came in with confidence, and I just remember being there the year before, not knowing anything. And the team I was put with were two individuals that have never done DECA either, so I knew exactly where they were at. And yeah, we rocked it. We worked well together as a team, and it really got me, that was like my first real victory in DECA altogether. So I was sold there. And part of the Innovation Summit is the top 3 teams have to perform in front of everyone, give their pitch, which is about 300 people or so, maybe a little bit less. But that was unbelievable. I love that. And I was sold on public speaking. I wanted to do more of it. So I started to read books. I started doing things like that following, just because it was a lot of fun, a lot of energy. But then another piece after that Innovation Summit was Jenny's husband, Justin Clausen. I don't know if you've ever spoken with him at all,
Yeah,
but
we're talking about Jenny, for those that don't know, is the executive director of Collegiate DECA, Minnesota Collegiate DECA.
Yep, yeah, you bet. And she, so Justin was doing one of the roundtable events, and I sat there and listened to him speak, and he is like a crazy, like intellectual, super smart guy, and it was probably like my favorite speaker of the day. And after competition was done, I was walking through, and he's like, "You have to run for state office." And I thought it was the coolest thing because I respected this individual because he's just a genius, and that was kind of the piece where I was like, I'm gonna go for it.
Cool. Yeah. So obviously, it played out that you won. Do you want to talk about so for those of you that don't know, when you run for state office, you have to give a speech to the voting delegates at the state conference, and the voting delegates vote for who's going to be the next president for the next academic year. Do you want to talk about a little bit how you approached your speech? How did that kind of play out, and why do you think that it ultimately resonated, and why that you ultimately became president?
Yeah, so part of my speech, I mean, I've read like 2 books on public speaking. So I kind of had this idea of how I was going to structure it. I didn't want to read like off a script. I just basically wanted to get up there. I had some bullet points I was going to touch on. I spoke about, my Innovation Summit story, and just kind of how I approached it, I think went a long way. And what really, really helped was the fact that I did get involved with kind of the events that they had. So my name was kind of known a little bit before CDC. So just participating is what ultimately helped, I think, that run for president.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously you served your 1-year term in office. You got under the real world. I'm getting towards the end of my term here. So we kind of talked about how what led up to it. Was the reason you wanted to run for office, was it because was it for yourself? Was it for to prove to yourself you could do it? It was you decided that you love public speaking. Was there more, or was there less to it than that, I guess? What were your reasons for doing it, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, part of it definitely, I mean, was self-focused. I wanted to see that, I could do something if I put my mind to it and get better at it. I mean, I was still at the point kind of where I didn't quite believe in myself like wholeheartedly. I still kind of felt like everyone, was luckier, or, for whatever reason, I just didn't have what it was to do much. But so I went for that, but I also really wanted to see how an organization that is statewide operated. I thought that was going to be a really cool kind of aspect of being able to kind of get a behind the scenes look, similar to how I did it in my chapter as well, but it's just a little bit more zoomed out, a little bit more macro version of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you definitely do get that experience as a state officer. You definitely learn the ins and outs of the organization and everything that goes along with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have obviously have had so far 2 very different terms in office. You were president. You went to you had all your conferences in person. You got to meet with members in person. You got to communicate with them, and it wasn't through a screen like everything we do these days. I don't know. We could talk a little bit about how that's different and why there's pros and cons to each. Obviously, I wish that I could see members in person all the time, and I think that's usually how you get the best experience out of it. But I think that there's pros and cons, I guess.
Yeah.
And
I would say, because I mean, that was definitely great, because I wanted to get that public speaking experience, because I mean, someday I want to, run a company. And I noticed when I worked at Capital One throughout college, when the big dogs came down, they talked to everyone in a big auditorium. So I wanted to get that experience so I could be, better at it, hopefully in the future when that opportunity comes about. But as far as kind of having to do it through Zoom, especially in this environment now, I think going forward, a lot more companies are going to do a lot more things remote because, they found out that they can do it. And I'll tell you, a lot of people just aren't, great at delivering Zoom meetings, having conversation through Zoom, and, getting that experience it's definitely going to help you as well, going forward.
Yeah, and I talk to people all the time that are members, other students that are frustrated with the Zoom experience or Zoom University or whatever,
Yep.
doing DECA through Zoom. And I'm like, believe me, I feel you, I get it, but it's part of a job as a leader. No matter the circumstances, it's to make the best out of the experience for yourself, but more importantly for everyone else that you're leading. And I think that's definitely the case as a student, as anything in life. And I think that I always tell students, look on the bright side. You think of all these skills that you're gaining right now that you're going to need, that are going to be the future of whatever field you go into, probably. Because I mean, like you said, this virtual world, hopefully we get back to a time and place where we can be in person and talk to each other. But I don't think that this is going away entirely either. Like you said, companies are they've learned that they can do things remotely. They've learned that they can, you don't have to go to the office 5-6 days a week. You can spend more time with your family and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And if you hone in on, just the skills, just even little things like I got this mic just because I'm on it all the time. I have a light. Some people are in, dimly lit rooms, and it's brutal if you got to be in there for an hour. So if you get good at just the little things, it's going to definitely go a long way after college, certainly.
Yeah, and that's what, and DECA is all about building those skills and those experiences that ultimately benefit you as you leave college and you start getting into the workforce. And that even though we're not in person, we're still doing that in this this medium as well, virtually, because like you said, it's not going away.
Exactly. No, I don't think there's any getting around it. And it's the more you do throughout college, you kind of can take big risks without as much of the downside. Once you get out in the real world, you're going to want to have some skills kind of in your tool belt that you can use. And it's the little things that are definitely going to go a long way throughout the interview process, throughout just your career altogether.
Yeah, for sure. So you're out in the real world now. You obviously entered the workforce at an interesting time. I don't know if you want to talk about that experience, because you graduated when did you graduate? Did you graduate in the spring last spring? Yeah.
Yep, I graduated in May.
Yep, you graduated in May, and now obviously you've entered the workforce in a pandemic, which is a different experience than anyone prior has ever experienced. How has that worked out for you, and if any way that DECA has helped you out through that as well? How did that all work out for you?
Yeah, so it was definitely unique. I started in June, at the end of June. So it was, in the heart of everything being closed down. I didn't even know if they were going to move the start date. They didn't know if they were going to move it or anything like that until about a week and a half before. And I did end up going down my very first day, but the office is absolutely empty. I got to meet my boss, but we had to have masks on, which is, it's interesting meeting new people like that because you don't get to, see the full face or anything. But then, it's tough just because I'm not meeting as many people as I plan to. So I'm doing a lot more Zoom, a lot more things that just don't have that personal touch to it necessarily. But it's been a great experience, learning a lot. I'm seeing how, this big company, US Bank, handles a pandemic, which is interesting to see. So I learned a lot that way as well.
Yeah, and it's obviously a lot of adaptation, I'm sure, on your part, but it's nothing that you can't deal with, I guess. And ultimately, I think you're good at this because you have led other people and whatnot. But like I've said before, leaders make the best out of what the situation is, and I think that DECA has probably prepared you in that way. And I mean, just life experiences do as
Yeah,
well.
and DECA, I mean, it absolutely helps because you have that mindset more so of it doesn't really matter what the situation is going to be. It'd be a lot more, easier just to be like, I'm going to do less because, it's easier to do less when you're at home than you're in the office. It's easier to, like, for your instance, to, you don't need to do these podcasts at all. You could turn it off if you wanted, but a good leader, a good, person is going to go the extra mile, and I think that definitely says a lot about who you are as a person.
Yeah, for sure. And this is just one example of how DECA has adapted to a COVID environment, and it's hopefully, like we said, it's probably not something that's going away. I hope the next state officer team does this as well, because I mean this is useful in a pandemic and out of a pandemic, even though we started it in a pandemic because we weren't going to be able to have those face-to-face interactions with people.
Yep.
But this is still something that I think would be beneficial no matter what down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we can get that CDC will be in person and everything will be good. Let's hope. Yeah, absolutely.
As of now, it is. Yeah. So it's just, like you said, you got to make the best of it. I mean, that's all you really can do. The alternative to that isn't great. So that's what we're trying to do here. And I think that's always got to be the goal.
Definitely. And I mean, it's tough to do, but try to see it as a positive as much as you can. I mean, a lot of people are going to, slow down because they can. Mm-hmm. And if you just keep learning, keep doing, new things, I think things like a podcast, for instance, these are only getting more and more popular. So there's a real chance that if you own a company, you're going to have a podcast. And if you don't, learn these skills now, like, when are you going to learn them? So just take the bull by the horns, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be your approach to life in a lot of senses. And it certainly has to be your approach to life right now, because I mean, think about it. We're, I don't know, 10 months into this,
who knows at this point?
Yeah, all the days are the same. But imagine if you just took 10 months off and you didn't try to get better in any single facet of your life. You're just staying steady. I mean, that's not a good formula for personal growth. That's not a good formula for career growth or anything like that. And I think that just finding those ways to adapt, and like you said, looking on the positive of the situation, that's what you got to do, because the alternative just isn't going to be good for you.
Definitely. And I just saw a quote. I don't remember who said it, but and not that money is everything, but it was, being broke is tough, becoming rich is tough, choose your tough,
Yeah.
And
right.
So I mean, just keep learning, keep grinding, and the skills you learn are really what's going to set you up for success in the future.
Yeah, and I think if you work hard and you continually improve, not only your career standing, but in doing that, you're probably helping yourself, personal growth, whether or not you realize it or not. You're not going to regret that down the line. Like, you're not going to be like, gosh, I worked too hard. Like, no one says that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Right. I mean, it's and people like that make the best out of every situation are the people that, like you said, are leaders in our world today.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm approaching the end of my term in office. You've been wrapped up for almost a year now. It'd be interesting to see what our answers are to this question, because like we've said, I've had very different experiences in office. But what was your biggest takeaway? What were you most grateful for after your year serving as president of Minnesota Collegiate DECA?
Yeah, so I would pick two for this. So nothing's most rewarding, and I mean, I'm sure there's more than two. But I mean, the biggest thing that I learned, I mean, almost throughout my whole DECA experience, is how to learn. You basically learn how to learn. Because before that, I really thought it was, the successful people, they were, for whatever reason, were born that way and destined to be it. And I didn't feel like, I didn't have what it took. But what DECA showed me was everything is a skill, whether it's public speaking, whether it's one-on-one conversations, whether it's getting healthy, cooking, anything. Everything you do is a skill. And it's just getting out of your comfort zone, learning about it. And then the next time you go to do it, you're still probably going to be really bad, but you're going to have that little bit of experience. and then that in perpetuity, you're going to be the best person you can be, and probably the best that does it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, just all the people. When you get in an organization like this, I think it's a very unique thing that you have a network of people that are just trying to be the best that they can be, specifically in business. If you're going into that, just to have all my social media is filled with people I met through DECA, and they're posting intelligent things that I learned from that. If I need anything from anyone, they're more than happy to help me, and I'm more than happy to help them. So that would definitely be the best thing that I got from DECA. My experience is the folks, because they're great, and it's cool to see everyone after the fact where they're going and talk with them.
Yeah. I'd say that's my biggest takeaway since I've been involved in DECA, and why it's always been something I knew I wanted to do, and why I wanted to run for state office was because as long as I've been involved in DECA, the people are definitely what make it worthwhile. Because like you said, people involved in DECA are some of the best people I've met in my life, because they're in DECA because they want to be better. They're not doing this just as like a thing that they do. Like, everyone's in DECA has a purpose, and they want to be getting better at what they're doing. And I think that that's something that can be exceedingly rare at times in our society today. And to just surround yourself with those people that want to better themselves is not only invigorating, but it's definitely a rewarding experience to just be around those people all the time. And that's from the people at the very top running the organization, like our executive director, Jenny, the board of directors, whether that's the state officer team. I made great friends on the state officer team. And then just the members as well, those that we all connect with all the time. Even like you said, growing a network of people that genuinely want to better themselves, want to be successful, is something that it draws you in. It gives you kind of DECA fever. And I think that was always my biggest takeaway, why I always wanted to be a part of DECA, and ultimately why I think it'll be most rewarding as I kind of eventually move on from, not that I'll ever move on from DECA, but just not be,
there's no getting out of it.
That's right. There's no former DECA members. They're all DECA members for sure.
But yeah, it's definitely great. Just, the people you meet, like, if they're trying to better themselves, you're going to have better conversations throughout your day, and you learn one little thing in a conversation, and again, that in perpetuity, it's going to just lead to better things. If all you're focused about is partying on the weekend, and that's what you're talking about, that's what you're going to do. And until you kind of get out of whatever you're doing and really focus in on just getting better, DECA is a perfect place to do that.
Yeah, and to go off of that a little bit, there's myself on a lesser state level, but I've talked to other people that DECA have set their lives on a better course again. I think that definitely happens. And maybe even you yourself you talk about this a little bit, how you always considered yourself to be kind of average and not anything extraordinary, but DECA can bring you out of your shell, and it can make you, like we said, your best self. And I think that that's something valuable, and I think that that's what'll always be the biggest takeaway for
absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm so thankful for kind of, almost stumbling upon it. That very first Main Street event with all the clubs, it could have been, the board game club, or I don't know, bass fishing club, Harry Potter club, but it was DECA, and look where I am now,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good question to end on. Thank you, Chet, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as a last piece, if anyone watching this, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on, all the social medias. And with any questions, if you, want to quote for a paper, or you want to cry about the Vikings losing, I've already got that built into my schedule, so you might as well. But I'm more than happy to help anyone, anytime, about anything. So feel free to reach out.
Like I said, like we said, DECA is a great network of people that are always going to go the extra mile for others. So with that, don't forget, for those of you listening, throughout our series of podcasts leading up to the state conference in February, the state officer team will continue to share their own stories and the stories of others like Chet surrounding Minnesota Collegiate DECA. Once again, Chet, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I think that it was a unique conversation as we talked about our different terms in office and how we're approaching the pandemic, and as that consumes us. That's how life kind of is, but that's like we said, we're going to make the best of it, and we encourage others to as well. So I'm President Zach Spohn. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.